After hosting a huge family dinner, my husband's mother smiled and said, "That was nice, but my other daughter-in-law's cooking is so much better." My husband nodded, "She just likes to compare." I smirked and said, "Then she'll love what I have to compare to." Their faces went pale when they realized what I had just set up. I don't get mad easily. I'm the kind of person who lets things roll off my back. I like to keep the peace, avoid conflict, and just move on. But there's only so much a person can take. For years, I've dealt with my mother-in-law, Diane, and her constant comparisons. Every time we're together, she has to bring up my husband's brother's wife, Laura. Laura is perfect, according to Diane. She's the golden daughter-in-law. Laura's cooking? Amazing. Laura's house? Flawless. Laura's parenting? Impeccable. It doesn't matter what I do, Diane finds a way to bring Laura into it. Now, let me be clear, I like Laura. She's never rubbed anything in my face. She's actually very sweet. But Diane? She makes it her mission to remind me that I will never be as good as Laura. And that brings us to the night that changed everything. It was my idea to host a big family dinner. I planned the menu, did all the shopping, prepped everything from scratch, and spent the entire day in the kitchen. I even set up a beautiful dining table, lit candles, the whole deal. I wanted it to be special. Dinner went smoothly at first. Everyone ate, chatted, laughed. Then, as we were clearing the plates, Diane leaned back in her chair, gave me a tight smile, and said, "That was nice, but Laura's cooking is just so much better." I froze. Did she really just say that? I looked at my husband, Mark, expecting him to say something. He just shrugged and muttered, "She just likes to compare." Like that made it okay. Like I should just accept that no matter what I do, Diane will always find a way to make me feel less than. I felt something shift inside me. I didn't snap. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just smiled. Then she'll love what I have to compare to. That's when Diane's smile twitched. And Mark's eyes widened slightly. Because he knew what I meant. He knew what I was about to do. I didn't go for the obvious revenge. That would have been too easy. I wanted Diane to realize on her own how ridiculous she was being. So I started playing her own game. A few days later, I casually asked her, "Hey, what's Laura's lasagna recipe?" She lit up, going on about how Laura's lasagna was the best she's ever had. How nothing could compare. So I made my own. And the next time Diane came over, I set 2 plates in front of her. One was Laura's exact recipe. The other was mine. I didn't tell her which was which. I just smiled sweetly and said, "Since you love comparisons so much, let's see which one you like better." She hesitated. But she took a bite of each. She chewed. She swallowed. Then she pointed to one and said, "This one. This one is perfect. It tastes just like Laura's, but somehow better." It was mine. I watched as the realization slowly dawned on her face. She had just admitted that my food was better. But I wasn't done. The next time she came over, I made sure my house was spotless. Not just clean, immaculate. Every pillow perfectly placed, not a single speck of dust. Fresh flowers on the table. A scented candle burning. As soon as Diane stepped inside, she inhaled sharply. "Oh, this looks different." "Thanks," I said. Laura gave me some ideas. Laura hadn't. But Diane didn't need to know that. Diane's mouth pressed into a thin line. She glanced around, nodding stiffly. I could tell she wanted to find something wrong. She couldn't. She didn't say much after that. But I wasn't done. Diane loves Christmas. And every year, she goes on and on about how beautiful Laura's holiday decorations are. So, that year, I went all out. I didn't just decorate, I transformed my home into something straight out of a magazine. Twinkling lights, a perfectly coordinated tree, garlands draped just right. When Diane walked in, she froze. Her eyes scanned the room. She turned to Mark and muttered, "This is stunning." I just sipped my wine and said, "Oh, Laura inspired me." Diane's lips twitched. She knew. She knew I was playing her game. She just didn't know how to respond. Then came Diane's birthday. Every year, Laura bakes her a cake. And every year, Diane raves about how wonderful it is. So this time, I made one too. But I didn't just bake a cake. I made a masterpiece. A multi-layered, bakery-level cake, decorated to perfection. At the party, Diane took a bite. She paused. She took another. "This is amazing," she said slowly. I just smiled and said, "Laura makes great cakes too, doesn't she?" That's when Jake, Laura's husband, laughed and said, "Oh, Laura didn't have time to bake this year. She just picked one up from the store." Diane's face fell. And in that moment, I saw it. The realization. For years, she had been comparing us, without actually paying attention. But now? Now, she was stuck. Because if she admitted my cake was better, she would have to admit that I was better at something than Laura. And if she refused to admit it, everyone at the table would know why. The room went silent. Diane put her fork down. And I waited. After that night, something changed. Diane wasn't as chatty with me anymore. Normally, she'd flood our family group chat with messages about Laura's latest amazing achievements, her new recipe, her perfect home, how Jake was just so lucky to have her. But now? Silence. I knew she was thinking. Processing. Trying to figure out if she had just spent years hyping up the wrong person. But I wasn't done. See, Diane had spent so much time comparing us, she never actually saw me for who I was. She only saw me as not Laura. So, I decided to make things interesting. A few weeks later, we were all at another family gathering, this time at Diane's house. Laura was there. She gave me a knowing smirk the moment she walked in. She knew what I'd been doing. And she loved it. Diane, however, was on edge. I could see it in the way she kept glancing at me, almost waiting for me to do something. So, I did. In the middle of dinner, while everyone was enjoying their food, I leaned back, took a sip of wine, and sighed. You know, I said casually, I was talking to Laura the other day about how you always compare us. The fork stopped clinking. Laura raised an eyebrow. Mark shot me a look. And Diane? She went rigid. I smiled. It's just funny, I continued, because I told her that between the two of us, we've never actually cared about being better. That was always your thing, Diane. Silence. Then Laura, bless her, burst out laughing. Oh my God, it's true, she cackled. We've never even thought about it. Diane's face turned bright red. I could see the panic in her eyes. She was realizing, in real time, that the one thing she had built, this whole competition, was never even real. She had been keeping score in a game that no one else was playing. And now? She looked stupid. Diane didn't say much after that, but I could tell it bothered her. She spent the rest of the evening trying to regain control, making little comments about how family traditions were important, how some people didn't respect the way she had always done things. I let her have it. For now. Because I knew what was coming. A few days later, Mark walked into the living room, rubbing his temples. My mom just called, he said. And? I asked. She wants us to come over. Just us. No Laura, no Jake. This was it. She was about to make her move. When we got to Diane's house, she was already sitting at the dining table, hands clasped, lips pressed into a tight line. Mark sat down beside me, clearly not in the mood for whatever was about to happen. I need to ask you something, Diane said, voice clipped. I tilted my head. Sure. Why are you doing this? I blinked. Doing what? She exhaled sharply. You know, all these little games. The cooking, the decorating, the cake stunt at my birthday. I just stared at her. Diane, I said slowly, for years, you've been comparing me to Laura. Every meal, every event, every holiday. And you expect me to just take it? I'm just showing you what real comparisons look like. Her nostrils flared. You don't understand, she said. It's not about putting you down. It's just Laura has always been so. She trailed off. I waited. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Diane sighed, rubbing her temples. I just thought if I set a standard, you'd try harder. That's when I laughed. A real, sharp, disbelieving laugh. Try harder. I repeated. You mean, try harder to meet your expectations? When did I ever ask to compete with Laura? She didn't answer. Because she knew. She knew she had created this entire situation herself. I leaned forward. Diane, let me ask you something. She lifted her chin. What? Did it ever cross your mind that maybe Laura was just doing what made her happy? And that maybe I was doing the same? That none of this was ever about you? She swallowed. I could see the cracks forming in her carefully built illusion. But I wasn't done. You spent years pitting us against each other, I said. And for what? To prove something? To control something? And now you don't even like the outcome. Silence. I glanced at Mark. His jaw was tight. He was staring at Diane like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. You should go, Diane said suddenly. I smiled. Sure. And just like that, I got up and walked out. But I knew this wasn't over. Diane wasn't the type to lose quietly. I had backed her into a corner. And people like Diane? They don't like feeling trapped. I knew Diane wasn't going to let things go that easily. She wasn't the type to sit back and accept defeat. So I wasn't entirely surprised when things started to shift in a different direction. It started small. Suddenly, my invitations to family gatherings were accidentally forgotten. A cousin's baby shower? Oops, we didn't think you'd want to come. A family brunch? Oh, we assumed you'd be busy. Mark, bless his heart, didn't catch on at first. But I did. Diane wasn't ignoring me. She was erasing me. Then, one day, Laura texted me. "You're gonna want to see this." She sent a screenshot from a group chat Diane had started with some of the other family members. It was a message about me. I don't know what's going on with Opie lately, but she's been really different. She's always trying to prove something. I just don't think she's really one of us. One of us. Interesting. Because last time I checked, I was the one married into this family. I was the one raising my kids under the same roof as Diane's beloved son. I was the one who had been showing up to everything for years. But now? I was an outsider. I should have been mad. I should have confronted her. Instead, I smiled. Because Diane had just made a fatal mistake. She underestimated how much people actually liked me. Diane was a force, no doubt. She had spent years crafting her reputation as the family matriarch, the one everyone listened to, the one who set the rules. But she forgot one thing. She wasn't the only one with influence. Laura, despite being Diane's golden child, had never needed Diane's approval. And she certainly didn't owe her anything. So Laura started pushing back. It started at a family dinner when someone made a passing joke about how I was too competitive lately. Laura raised an eyebrow and said, or maybe she just got tired of Diane treating her like crap. The entire table went quiet. Diane's fork hit her plate a little too hard. "Excuse me," she said. "Oh, come on," Laura said, leaning back. "You spent years pitting us against each other, and now you're acting like OP's the bad guy for flipping the script? I think it's hilarious." Someone laughed. Not Mark. Not Jake. One of Diane's sisters. And that's when I realized people weren't blind to Diane's behavior. They had just been too scared to say anything. But now, they weren't scared anymore. Then came the real twist. One night, Laura and I met up for coffee, and she hesitated before saying, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." She looked around, like she was making sure no one was listening. Then she sighed. "Diane never liked me either." I blinked. "Wait, what?" Laura stirred her drink absently. "When Jake and I first got engaged, she didn't think I was good enough for him. She compared me to his ex all the time. She didn't stop until I basically stopped caring." I sat back. "So, all these years of her treating you like royalty? Fake," Laura said flatly. "The only reason she boosted me up so much was to push you down." I let that sink in. All those years I had spent feeling like I was the problem? It was never about me. It was always about Diane's need for control. And now? Now she was losing it. The last straw came at another family dinner. This time, it was at Mark's aunt's house. Diane, clearly feeling the heat from everyone seeing through her act, had switched tactics. She was being overly nice. "Opie, your hair looks so lovely today. Oh, I love that dress on you. You should really share your recipes with Laura. Maybe she could learn a few things." That last one almost made me choke on my drink. Laura snorted. Diane was trying to undo the damage. But it was too late. Because then, out of nowhere, Mark's aunt, who had always been a little blunt, looked up and said, "Diane, why do you treat OP like a second-class citizen?" Dead. Silence. Diane's entire body went stiff. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dangerously low. Mark's aunt didn't flinch. "We all see it," she said. "You treat Laura like she walks on water, and you nitpick everything OP does. It's embarrassing to watch." I almost felt bad. Almost. Diane turned bright red. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Jake took a long sip of his beer. And then Diane did what she always does when she can't control a situation. She stood up, forced a tight smile, and said, "Excuse me, I need some air." She walked out of the room. And for the first time in years, nobody followed her. I knew Diane wasn't done. She had lost control of the family dynamic. She had been called out, not just by me, but by people she actually cared about. She wasn't the type to take that lying down. So as everyone returned to their food, I looked at Laura and muttered, "She's going to retaliate." Laura smirked. "Oh, absolutely." And I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. I knew Diane wouldn't let things go. She had spent years controlling the family dynamic, turning people against each other, deciding who was worthy of her approval. And now, that control was slipping through her fingers. She needed a way to get it back. And she found it. A few weeks later, Mark and I got an invitation to a family intervention. I almost laughed. "What is this, a reality show?" I muttered, tossing the invitation onto the counter. Mark ran a hand through his hair. "My mom said it's about the tension in the family. She wants to clear the air." I gave him a look. "And you believe that?" He sighed. "No, but my aunt and Laura will be there. So at least you won't be alone." Fine. If Diane wanted a confrontation, I'd give her one. When we arrived at Diane's house, it was packed. She had invited everyone, Mark's aunts, uncles, cousins. Even Laura and Jake. Diane sat at the head of the room, hands clasped in front of her, smiling. It was a trap. And I had walked right into it. Diane stood up, cleared her throat, and said, I've gathered everyone here because I think we've lost our way as a family. There's been so much negativity, so much division. And I just want us to heal. She looked at me. Not at Mark. Not at Laura. Just me. And that's when I realized. This wasn't about the family. It was about me. Diane sighed dramatically, shaking her head. I've tried so hard to make Opie feel welcome in this family. I've encouraged her, included her, even complimented her when she needed it. I scoffed. Complimented me? When? She put a hand on her chest. But lately, it feels like she's been trying to turn people against me. Like she wants to make me the villain. There it was. The narrative shift. Diane wasn't the manipulative one I was. She sniffed, shaking her head. I love my sons. I love my daughters-in-law. But I can't keep pretending that Opie isn't tearing this family apart with her resentment. I saw people shifting uncomfortably. Some looked confused. Others, like Diane's closest relatives, nodded along like she was the victim here. And Mark? He was frozen. His mother had just thrown a grenade into the room, and he had no idea how to react. Then, Diane turned to me. If there's something you need to say, Opie, say it now. I stood up slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just let my words sink in. For years, you compared me to Laura. You used her to make me feel small, like I'd never be good enough. You pushed me, tested me, and the second I started playing by your rules, when I finally beat you at your own game, you turned it into a personal attack. Diane's jaw tightened. I took a step forward. And now that people are seeing who you really are, you're scrambling to fix it. You don't want to heal the family, Diane. You want to make sure no one blames you. She gasped. I have done nothing but love this family, no. You've done nothing but control it, I shot back. The room shifted. Diane never got called out in public. Ever. She looked at Mark, desperate. Say something. Mark swallowed. He was struggling. Because finally, after all these years, he had to choose. His mother. Or me. Then, out of nowhere, Laura stood up. You know what? She said, folding her arms. I'm done pretending too. Diane's head snapped toward her. Laura, no, Laura said sharply. For years, you've put me on a pedestal, not because you liked me, but because you needed me to be better than Opie. You needed a perfect daughter-in-law to use against her. And now that it's backfiring, you're playing the victim. A murmur went through the room. Even Diane's closest family members were watching now. Jake exhaled and ran a hand down his face. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Diane. This is embarrassing. Diane's eyes widened. She turned back to Mark. Mark, please. Tell them I'm not like this. And for the first time, Mark didn't defend her. He just let out a slow breath and said, Mom, I love you. But I can't keep pretending anymore. It was over. Diane's grip on the family was gone. Diane stormed out of the room. Some people followed her, but most didn't. Laura sat back down, shaking her head. Jesus. That felt good. Mark looked at me. Are you okay? I was exhausted. But for the first time in years, I was free. Diane avoided me for weeks after that. She still had her supporters, of course. Some family members thought I was being dramatic. That I had disrespected the matriarch of the family. But others? They saw the truth. Diane never apologized. She never admitted what she did. But she lost something that night, her influence. And me? I finally understood that I had never needed her approval. I had wasted years trying to be good enough for someone who was never going to be satisfied. But now I was done playing. And Diane? She would never win again.